Heavenly Father, thank you for gathering together this group of Rotarians, be together to think about our communities, the work that we can do, the things we can accomplish, the money we can raise, lives we can change, food that we can eat together. We're thankful that we have it so easy and so good that we can come here and enjoy each other's company, enjoy being together as Rotarians, and leave here with a new spirit in our heart to go out and serve our community. Thank you for this food, for this place, for all the folks who worked so hard to deliver it to us, for this club that's accomplished so much over the last 110 years. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, beautiful Lord, stage, God, forever, praise of praise, o'er purple mountains, majesty, of the fruited plain. America, God shed His grace on me, and crown us with love, from sea to shining sea.
That spells Rotary. Wonderful. Okay. Beautiful. Maybe just a little bit. Yeah, that'd be great. All right. Well, thank you again for everyone for being here today. And to our guests, I hope that you find today to be insightful, inspiring, as well as connecting you with a club that is truly passionate about living a life of service above self in our community. So what we're going to do now is introduce our guests. Oh, Paul, throwing his food down. We got Paul Watson coming up here. He's going to pass you the mic if you're a guest. Just please say name, what brings you to Rotary, and what you do.
Who's a guest? Who's a guest? Anybody? Anybody? We got a guest right here. Hello. Yes.
Hi, I'm Amy Gagner. I am the director at the Alzheimer's Association for the Walk to End Alzheimer's. So I'm invited by Mr. Weston over there and appreciate the invitation. Looking forward to today.
Right. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Hi. Are you a guest?
Hi, I'm Gabriella. Happy to be here. I work full-time as a real estate agent on the residential side.
Welcome. 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 All right. I think that's it for today. Handing it back to you.
Hey, good to see you, sir. You too. Hey, man. Yeah, thank you so much for being here today, guests. I hope you feel welcome and at home. And looking forward to hearing from Erin Campbell today. Thank you for being here as well. Appreciate that. Moving on, it is a service update with Kevin Summers. Kevin, come on up, my friend.
Thank you, President Harrison. First thing I want to talk about is planting trees. And I'm stealing John's thunder. I don't even have my shirt on, but I should start wearing that. Last week, my wife and I and Mike Brennan were at, and John showed up as well, planting trees at bus stops. And at first you ask yourself, well, why are we worried about bus stops? But when you think about it, after visiting these locations, they're right out in the sun. And if it's a typical summer day in Raleigh, somebody standing waiting for the bus is really in a very difficult situation standing there by the roadside. So when these trees mature, they'll provide nice shade. As we learned, a typical oak tree lowers the temperature in the shade to about 20 degrees below the ambient air temperature. So this was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. And I thank our opportunity, John, and I encourage you guys, we have another tree planting scheduled in April, which I think is the next slide. Yes. In April on the 18th, please mark your calendars. We're going to plant some more trees. And this is your chance. Again, a lot of you have supported this project financially. I would love to see folks support it with their service. So just mark your calendars for that. And then in May, we got a couple projects coming up. A stream cleanup, we do that every year. That'll be on May 2nd. And then on May 9th, we will have Wake Up and Read. We'll be doing some book sorting. So thank you.
Thank you so much. 4 more years. Is Pete here today? I don't know if I saw him or not. But we're going to highlight just real quick the Boys and Girls Home Rotary Charity Golf Tournament is on Monday, May 18th. I don't know if sign-up's still active or not, but if you want more information, please reach out to Linda or Pete. I know that I think we're hosting 2 teams. I will be caddy for one of the teams, just rooting you on because I can't play golf. But it's going to be at the, what is that? The Lockmere Golf Club in Cary. All right. Is my favorite time of Rotary. Diamante, come on up, brother.
You all right today? I know, man. I know. It happens to all of us. It happened to us last week. So, with that being said, how are we doing today? I ask again, how are we doing today? There we go. There we go. I know some of us had some heartbreaks this March, but everything's going to be all right. You can always look forward to next year, okay? Congratulations on State with their new head coach. We're excited. Well, not we, but I'm excited for the program, especially somebody to just leave like that. I don't like that myself. Carolina, keep us in your prayers. And Duke, better luck next year. But with that being said, you guys, all jokes aside, with everything going on, please tell somebody or call somebody you haven't spoke to in a while. Tell them you love them. I'm hearing a lot of things. I notice a lot of things. People are losing their lives left and right. So if you know somebody in Rotary you ain't heard or spoken to in a long time, call them, check up on them, because a call goes a long way. Just to say, hey, how are you doing? Hey, I miss you. Let's bring some of those old Rotarian faces back as well too, because I love to see a lot of Rotarians. A lot of wisdom is in this building. With that being said, though, we do have a new member orientation next month here at Tobacco Road. So, hey, you guys, if you are a new member and you want to get something off your checklist, we have our new member orientation. We'll actually be right upstairs having our new member orientation. Also, too, we just had our service social at Smash. Who attended Smash? We had a ball. We did. We learned about an interesting book club that we can join as well too. But we also had fun. We played some ping pong and everything. So we had a great time. I look forward to the next service social we'll be having in May. I kind of sucked at ping pong. I haven't played since college. I was a little sober this time. So, but with that being said, I look forward to seeing you guys. And again, it's a challenge, you all, to call somebody that's a former Rotarian or that is a Rotarian and call them and tell them, hey, man, we want to see your face. All righty, you guys have a great one.
Thank you, Diamante. Appreciate that. All right, we have Tommy, our incoming president. He's going to give a quick highlight and update on what some of the themes over at PETS.
Yeah, so the president-elect training seminar was about a week ago out in Greensboro, and Richard and I attended. We were there with the esteemed Eric Stevens, who's our assistant district governor, and also Nathan Thomas from our club, past district governor, was there as well. So our club had 4 different people at PETS, which was awesome. And they talked, I think the messaging was fairly simple this year, to be honest. The messaging was the message of driving membership through increased service. And that's basically a lot of what they were talking about. If you want to oversimplify all these different breakout sessions and big overarching talks that they had, there was the idea that clubs that are in close relationship with each other are doing a lot of service, and clubs that do a lot of service become in close relationship with each other. Which one's the chicken, which one's the egg? They didn't give the answer. But that was kind of the theme in the messaging. So you can anticipate over the next couple of weeks or the next month or so that we'll have some updates about next year's theme and everything. Richard and I will be talking with Harrison behind the scenes about a smooth transition of power. Is that what you called it, Harrison? A takeover, hostile takeover. Got it. But we'll be working on all of that. I can just tell you next year is going to be a fun year. We're going to have a great time. There's going to be a ton of service. So thank you guys. Appreciate you letting me give you the update. If you got questions or ideas, hit me afterwards. We'll hang out.
Thank you, Tommy. Man, I mean, the Rotary Club of Raleigh is great for a lot of different reasons, but the caliber of members that we have here and seeing the lineup of our upcoming presidents, you guys are in such good hands with Tommy. And I think everybody here knows that. Very excited to see what you do next year, brother. All right, we have a quick update from Shakima on Raleigh, I believe. Come on up, Shake. Here you go.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm just going to give a brief update. I'm just needing some drivers for the next week or so. We will be driving our new awardees out to camp. So that's pretty much what my spill is for today. So if anyone is available next Friday morning, please get a hold of me as soon as possible so I can pass the information along to our chair so that they'll know who the drivers will be for Friday and Sunday. So thank you so much. And Linda has already probably shared an email to everyone and to see who would be willing to volunteer to be a driver. Thank you so much. Any questions, just come back and look me up.
Thank you so much, Shake. Appreciate that. All right, now it's that time where we have a wonderful fundraising update by our very own tree man himself.
Tree man, I like that. Hey, so let's see what we got here. Sponsors, thank you very much. I want to talk about the Governor's Mansion event that's happening on April the 27th. That's the Monday. It's 4 weeks from today. We can bring up to 150 people. There's room for 150 people. So we have about 30 guests that we're inviting who we've been partnering with on the tree campaign. We have about 90 club members. So there's room for more. So I've been talking to Harrison and Diamante. I said, let's make this a member recruitment event. So if you have someone you think would be a good Rotarian, bring them to the event as our guest, and we will make sure they see what the Rotary Club of Raleigh is up to in the community. Those invitations are going out later this week, so be in the lookout for an invite. Final Four is next weekend, and for the March Madness, we're down to the final 6. We've got a group of 4 that have picked Arizona. I see Eric out there somewhere, and Bob's out there. And then we have the one person who's picked Michigan. So 5 have picked Arizona, 1's picked Michigan. I almost feel like we should collect money and let people pick Illinois and see if we can get some more money. No, I'm just kidding. So Paul's in good shape. I think Michigan looked really good. Lastly, I do want to say one quick word about the tree campaign. Many people have come up to me and said the Rotary Club of Raleigh used to be really active in supporting trees across Raleigh. And we've kind of developed a reputation during this campaign of being the Rotary Tree Club in Raleigh. So I'd like for people to think about that and think about civic leadership. The fact that with this campaign, we partnered with the city of Raleigh. With this campaign, we partnered with the governor's office. We partnered with Trees for the Triangle. We Plant It Forward. And we're partnering, this is a new announcement, with the Downtown Raleigh Alliance to put ribbons on downtown trees. The Rotary Club of Raleigh is seen as a leader in our community. We want to keep that momentum going. So please invite leaders to join us at the Governor's Mansion in 4 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Yeah, it's going to be a great opportunity for us to highlight what our club has done, all the work that John and his team has done, and also, man, what better way to show someone that's thinking about Rotary the benefits of Rotary, especially the Rotary Club of Raleigh and what we're doing. And one thing I wanted to highlight on this. So I'm like I'm 10 in the pack, and I think there's 14 of us. I'm doing awful. But like Richard, I think he won last year. And Bob, so Richard and Bob, if you look at their percentage of correct, they're 98% correct throughout this entire. It's ridiculous. 98%. Cheaters. That's why I say, especially with Richard the second time in a row. I don't know. All right, we're going to move on to birthdays and anniversaries, upcoming birthdays. Our very own Kirk Warner on the 31st. Happy birthday to you, sir. He's turning some age. We'll just say what 13 to get 14. My birthday is on the 5th. And very excited. Oh, as well as Joe Crawford. And then Cassie's is on the 12th. And then we have quite a few anniversaries as well. We have Kalisha and Delshawn McLean on the 30th. Eric and Jamie Larson on the 5th. That's awesome. 46 years of marriage there. Happy anniversary to y'all. And Dave and Chris Gospoderic on the 12th. 57 years of marriage. Wow. So happy birthday. Happy anniversary to everyone. We're not going to be here next week because of Easter Monday. And then I just appreciate the club taking off for my birthday. But it's, you really don't, when your birthday lands on Easter, you really don't have a birthday because it's either your birthday or the resurrection of Jesus, and you lose out, which is okay. All right, moving on. Upcoming meetings, to mark your calendar. Again, the 6th, we do not have a meeting. On the 13th, we have Andrew Holton, the Executive Vice President and COO of Hub RTP. After that, we have Sarah Crawford, the CEO of TLC. And then on the 27th, we have our Governor's Mansion event. So we've got a fun, jam-packed April. So make sure to be out here and mark your calendar for those. All right, we're going to have raffle. Tommy coming up for raffle. Do we have a big pot today? We have a pot. Okay. $50. $50. Okay.
Yeah, so we got a good pot. I'll tell you what, we're going to get an impartial pull here.
There we go.
That's all right. That's all right. Oh, give me two. All right, hold on. All right, try again. There we are. That's two again. All right. You only have one. I wouldn't hit that there. So I'm gonna let it. All right. I've got 1, 4, 4, 3, 6, 0.
Hey,
1, 2, 3, 4. Come
Mike,
on
come on up, brother.
Glad to have you.
Come on up, Mike. You got to pull a card for you. Might get the big pot.
For those of you that haven't been here, if you win these days, you get the weekly amount. But then in addition to the weekly amount, you get to pull a card. If you pull a joker, you win $100. If you pull the ace of clubs, you win the whole pot, which this week is $301.
Perfect.
Next week it'll be higher. So you can pull any card you want. You pick one.
How about that one?
That's a good one, maybe.
What do you for 5 of clubs?
5 of clubs.
You get a pat on the back. But you still win this.
Better watch next time.
I'll bring it to you.
I'm going to donate.
Okay.
Oh, fantastic.
Good man. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Big guy, man. Thank you so much, Mike. All right. As always, we have the blue card buckets on the table. If you have any spare change or any kind of loose dollars, please put those in there for the Dementia Alliance and the research that they're doing. And then I think we've got Charlie. Oh, there you are. You usually sit back there in your normal spot. All right. For some happy dollars, Charlie.
Thank you, President Harrison. I'll throw $1 in there. On Saturday afternoon, I went with my wife out to the state fairgrounds to buy azaleas at the 45th annual Wake County Men's Gardeners Sale. And who did I happen to run into but the former past president of the Men's Garden Club, our very own Tom Packer, out there selling azaleas, and he's going to sell them all this week, I think, right?
Now called the Gardeners Wake County Club, and it's the annual azalea sale with other flowers. But the money raised, we give $10,000 in scholarships to horticultural students at NC State every year. So if you need flowers for your garden, until this Saturday, go out to Gate 6 off of U Center Drive by the pond there and everything, and buy some flowers. You'll get some great deals, and it's a great selection. Charlie and Connie, they bought a whole cartload, so that was great. Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you. Oh, Dave, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so as a state fan, there's a lot of ups and downs. So last week, this time, we had a coach. About 4 days ago, we didn't have a coach, and now we have a coach again. So Justin Gainey, very, very happy to have him as our head basketball coach for NC State.
That's right. Thank you, Dave. Go NC State. Kevin.
There was a game yesterday that I think most of us can be happy with, except Kurt. My Michigan Wolverines dominated. Look forward to them beating Arizona.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you. Kirk Warner. Kirk Warner.
The double loss yesterday. The Michigan squad, which actually I'm over the Big Ten, so I'm not too bad on them. But so $1 for my birthday and $19 for the points we could have used that we were ahead at 1 point for Duke.
That's right. That's right. Thank you, Kirk. Thank you, Kirk. Here's Eric. Eric Larson.
On a similar vein, we have disagreements among ourselves, friendly rivalries in the club at times, but I think there's something we can all be happy about right now. And I suspect everybody is happy that they are not a 2025-2026 men's basketball coach in the Triangle.
That's right. Amen. Thank you, Eric. Anyone else? Oh, yes, sir.
I have a happy 5. I don't know if a lot of people know it, but I have a 2.5-year-old granddaughter, and she now has a sister because my daughter had her second baby a few weeks ago, and I got to meet little Sophia Rose last weekend. So, yeah.
Well, congratulations, James. Thank you. That's it for Happy Dollars. Thanks, President Harrison.
Thank you, Charlie. Appreciate that. And that's a lot of good happy dollars. All right, now we're moving on to our featured presentation. Today we have Erin Campbell, and she is going to be doing a presentation on dementia basics and introduction to dementia with Lewy bodies. Quick bio on Erin. Erin was her mother's primary caregiver up until her death from dementia with Lewy bodies in 2023. Her mother's difficult journey inspired her to pursue a midlife career change and go back to school to study dementia with the eventual goal of becoming a DLB researcher. Erin is passionate about helping patients, caregivers, and the general public better understand DLB, as well as the ways in which those who are affected can be more accurately supported. Erin recognizes that DLB can be isolating and overwhelming for patients, as well as for their caregivers and loved ones. Knowing what you are dealing with is sometimes half the battle. Therefore, she hopes to provide educational resources to aid in the navigation of DLB diagnosis, treatment, and disease management. Erin owns Campbell Writing and Editing LLC, through which she contracts with Dr. Andrea Bazowski, a neurologist at UNC, on local educational DLB initiatives. Erin has a master's degree in technical communications, a master's degree in applied neuroscience, and is currently a neuroscience PhD student at NC State here in Raleigh. With that, Erin, we're going to go pack. There we go. All right, awesome. Come on up. You're ready. Please welcome Erin. I'll move this.
Yeah. Cake topper and not fell over. I'm gonna grab my glasses too, because my eyes are failing at a faster rate than I can make sense of. So I have 2 pairs. Thank you. All right. So hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. Gonna figure this out. So thank you for that kind introduction. Today, I'll be presenting on dementia with Lewy bodies. It's abbreviated DLB. As mentioned, I'm currently a neuroscience PhD student at NC State, but outside of my studies, I'm really passionate about educating patients, caregivers, healthcare professionals, just the general public on what DLB is, how it can be recognized sooner, and how people can get help faster. Hopefully I didn't need that. That's my, okay. So I work with Dr. Bazowski, who's a neurologist at UNC, on a statewide initiative to educate healthcare professionals and the general public on dementia, but particularly DLB, since it's dramatically under-recognized. And our hope is that through these educational efforts, doctors and loved ones may recognize the signs and symptoms sooner and get someone to receive help faster. I'll pause the train. maybe should I just put this down? Can everyone just hear me? I said no. So here is a brief overview of the topics that I'll touch on. First, I'm going to start with a little background on what dementia is. Second, I'll introduce dementia with Lewy bodies, or DLB. This is the primary type of dementia I'll focus on for the remainder of the presentation. And third, I'll go over how DLB is diagnosed. Fourth, how it's treated. And then finally, and most importantly, how patients and caregivers can find support, resources, and help. So what is dementia? So simply stated, dementia is the failure of neurons to work as they should. This failure may result in the loss of neuronal connections in the brain, leading to neuron miscommunication and in some cases neuron death. This neuronal failure may result in loss of cognitive functions such as memory, problem-solving abilities, and language. And this includes both the ability to speak and the ability to understand dialogue, and many other thinking capabilities. Sometimes dementia can cause changes in emotion, and an individual's personality may be altered temporarily or permanently. The risk of dementia increases as people age, but it's really important to recognize two things. The first is dementia is not a normal part of aging. So just because we are all getting older, we should not expect to get dementia. And second, not all dementia is the same. Each type of dementia is quite unique and requires specialized treatment. And furthermore, treatment for one type of dementia may be contraindicated in another type of dementia. So it's really important to know what you're dealing with if possible. The more we learn about the different types of dementia, the better chance we have of diagnosing appropriately and knowing how to help. So there are many different types of dementia, but for purposes of this presentation, I've chosen to highlight the primary types that most of you have likely heard of. The first three on this slide are all defined by the abnormal clumping of a specific protein or proteins in the brain. So Alzheimer's disease is defined by the abnormal aggregation of the proteins beta amyloid and tau. Dementia with Lewy bodies is defined by the aggregation of the protein alpha-synuclein. Frontotemporal dementia results from the aggregation of the proteins tau and TDP43. Vascular dementia is not defined by protein clumping, but rather results from damage to blood vessels in the brain. And the most common cause of vascular dementia is stroke. Finally, it's really important to note that many people have mixed dementias, and this can make diagnosis and treatment even more challenging. So the signs and symptoms of dementia may vary depending on a variety of factors, including the type of dementia someone may have and the severity, but some possible general symptoms are listed here. Since dementia can affect all forms of cognitive functioning in varying degrees of severity, dementia patients are not always able to express themselves as the rest of us may be able to. So unusual behaviors may sometimes be a sign of something else and something much more serious. For example, if a person is grimacing, clenching their fists, unable to sleep, or even lashing out, it may mean that they're hungry, that they're thirsty or uncomfortable, and they're simply not able to communicate this in words. The possibility that someone may be in pain should always be considered and always on the list of things to rule out. Patients may feel misunderstood or even threatened if they're experiencing hallucinations, delusions, or paranoia. So the rest of this presentation will focus on DLB, but many of the resources that I have to share are hopefully applicable to other types of dementia. So briefly, I'll start with what is DLB. So first, it is a neurodegenerative disease. It's classified as something called a synucleinopathy, which is a big old word that I'll more clearly define in a few slides. Second, DLB is the second most common form of dementia worldwide. Third, it has a vast array of symptoms, and importantly, some of these symptoms are treatable. Fourth, antipsychotic medications can cause severe side effects in people with DLB. So knowing what medications a DLB patient should avoid is really important, and I'll go over these presentations later in the presentation. Fifth, early and accurate diagnosis is the key to improved quality of life. As some of you may have experienced, DLB is an absolute roller coaster. The symptoms can fluctuate dramatically, particularly in the early stages of the disease, which can make diagnosis really challenging. Sixth, DLB has no known root cause. With other forms of dementia, like Alzheimer's, for example, there's an understanding that it's likely caused by a combination of genetics and environmental factors. But with DLB, we've been unable to find consistent genetic patterns, nor have we found consistent environmental triggers that are associated with any sort of predictive risk. This is not to say that these factors don't exist. It simply means we do not yet know what they are. And finally, DLB is one presentation of Lewy body disease, which is the umbrella term for several different disease presentations, which I'll elaborate on shortly. So to provide some historical context, this gentleman, Frederick Lewy, is the researcher who discovered what he noted as inclusion bodies in the neurons of patients with Parkinson's symptoms in the year 1912. We now refer to these inclusion bodies as Lewy bodies. Dr. Lewy was a colleague of Alois Alzheimer, which is a name most of you likely recognize, and he worked in Dr. Alzheimer's laboratory for several years. He was a Jewish German citizen by birth, and he fled his native country under the Nazi regime in the 1930s. He first escaped to London and later to the United States, where he became a citizen and served as a physician in the United States Army. So visuals can sometimes be helpful. So here are two pictures of what Dr. Lewy first identified. The picture on the left is a real image taken under a microscope of the inside of a nerve cell. And as you can see, the Lewy body stands out from the rest of the picture. It's very distinct in its structure and appearance. The picture on the right is a more simplified drawing, so it's a little bit easier to make out the detail. So we just saw images of what Lewy bodies look like structurally, but what are they actually comprised of? Lewy bodies are largely comprised of misfolded, aggregated alpha-synuclein, which is pictured on the right-hand side of this slide. However, recent studies using advanced cellular imaging techniques suggest that the composition of Lewy bodies may be much more complex, including a heterogeneous mix of mitochondria, organelles, and other proteins. Regardless of alpha-synuclein's exact distribution within a Lewy body, no worries. Do I need to do something on here? Okay, no. No, it's all good. Okay. Sorry, everyone. So regardless of alpha-synuclein's exact distribution within a Lewy body, it's generally accepted that this protein plays a meaningful role in Lewy body disease, even if its role is not singularly responsible for disease development. So alpha-synuclein is a neuronal protein that's found naturally in abundance in the healthy brain, as well as in the heart, peripheral muscles, and other tissues. The presence of alpha-synuclein is normal and not the problem. The problem starts when this protein begins to misfold and clump in an unchecked way. We do not know what causes this to happen in DLB. If we knew that, we would be much further ahead in the field of Lewy body research. So when those synaptic connections go awry and Lewy bodies begin to form, these Lewy bodies can accumulate in different parts of the brain. And depending on where they settle, a person will be affected in various ways. Lewy bodies can begin their accumulation in any of the three areas of the brain highlighted on the slide, and then spread to other parts of the brain. So the type of symptoms a person has typically correlates with the part of the brain that's impacted by the Lewy bodies. So this diagram demonstrates different presentations of Lewy body disease depending on where the Lewy bodies first begin to form. So if Lewy bodies begin clumping in the parts of the brain responsible for cognition and emotion, then a person is diagnosed with DLB. If the Lewy bodies first begin clumping in the parts of the brain responsible for movement, then a person is diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Both Parkinson's and DLB are progressive disorders, so symptoms of both conditions may eventually appear regardless of which diagnosis was received first. So Lewy body disease is the umbrella term for Parkinson's disease dementia, and dementia with Lewy bodies. Since Alzheimer's is something most people are familiar with, I thought it might be helpful to show some of the ways that DLB is different from Alzheimer's. Be mindful that the descriptions here represent those who have DLB only and Alzheimer's only. In reality, people can have both pathologies, and in these cases, the symptoms will overlap. So with this distinction in mind, the prevalence of Alzheimer's is much higher than DLB, but these numbers reflect diagnosed cases only. The World Health Organization estimates that 75% of dementia cases are undiagnosed, with upwards of 90% undiagnosed in low and middle income countries. Therefore, there are likely many undiagnosed Alzheimer's and DLB patients, as well as many DLB patients misdiagnosed with Alzheimer's. As I mentioned before, the underlying cause of DLB is unknown, whereas Alzheimer's is thought to be caused by a combination of specific genes and a variety of environmental and lifestyle triggers. Both DLB and Alzheimer's initiate with abnormal protein folding in the brain, but these culprit proteins are different. With regard to cognitive changes, DLB is much less about memory loss than Alzheimer's is. In DLB, the cognitive concerns are much more about executive functioning challenges like reasoning, problem solving, and fluctuations in alertness. REM sleep behavior disorder is common in patients with DLB and is considered a core clinical feature, but it is not as common in Alzheimer's disease. As far as recognition and awareness, DLB patients are often able to recognize people and faces up until the moment they die, whereas Alzheimer's is characterized by increases in loss of recognition over time. Hallucinations are extremely common in DLB, with approximately 80% experiencing visual hallucinations early in the disease process. Hallucinations can fluctuate in frequency and severity throughout the disease course. With Alzheimer's, hallucinations early in the disease are less common. As far as movement, DLB patients are presented with specific challenges. Muscle rigidity, stiffness, tremors, and falls are common. These movement symptoms can ebb and flow the same way that the mental symptoms can. Alzheimer's patients do not characteristically have disease-specific movement challenges, but as any dementia advances, spatial awareness and coordinated movement can become compromised. And finally, loss of smell or reduced smell is very common in Lewy body disease. This was my mom's first symptom, and it predated any other symptoms she had by at least 5 years. So we just saw how DLB and Alzheimer's are different, but someone can also have mixed dementias. And in particular, DLB and Alzheimer's seem to overlap quite frequently. Specifically, more than 80% of DLB patients meet Alzheimer's consensus criteria upon autopsy, and 60% of Alzheimer's patients demonstrate Lewy body pathology. We don't understand why these two pathologies appear together so frequently. This is one of the questions I really want to explore in my own research because I think it will help us better understand both conditions. So how is DLB diagnosed? So a DLB diagnosis is made by looking at two main things: clinical features, which are listed in the left-hand column on this slide, and then indicative biomarkers, which are listed on the right-hand side. I've also included a middle column of supportive clinical features because sometimes they can aid in diagnosis. So a DLB diagnosis is considered probable if 2 or more clinical features of DLB are present with or without the presence of indicative biomarkers, or 1 core clinical feature is present but with 1 or more indicative biomarkers. So in addition to the features and biomarkers we just looked at, there are 2 relatively new diagnostic tests that are remarkably accurate at diagnosing the presence of pathologic alpha-synuclein in nerve fibers. The first is a skin biopsy test called SYN1. SYN1 was able to detect phosphorylated alpha-synuclein in 96% of patients with DLB. And importantly, some of these patients were in the very early stages of the disease. The SYN1 test is covered by Medicare, and there are several academic centers that perform this test, a local one being UNC Neurology. But if someone lives far away from an academic medical center and they want this test done, they can ask their primary care physician to do the skin biopsy, and the doctor can order the testing kit directly from CND Life Sciences. One thing that's important to clarify about this test is that it can't diagnose DLB. Rather, it diagnoses the presence of pathologic alpha-synuclein in nerve fibers. And this means one of 2 scenarios. First, it could mean that someone does actually have an alpha-synuclein related condition like DLB or Parkinson's, or it could mean that someone has evidence of accumulated alpha-synuclein, but they don't actually have signs or symptoms of the disease. So this is one of the more confusing things about some of these pathologies, is that you can have a positive biomarker, but not actually have visible signs of the disease, and you may never develop those signs. We know this from autopsies that have been performed on people who died of causes other than Lewy body disease, and when their brains were analyzed, they found Lewy bodies, but the person had exhibited no measurable signs of Lewy body disease while living, and the same scenario has happened with Alzheimer's disease. The second test that is very accurate at diagnosing the presence of alpha-synuclein is the SYNTAP cerebrospinal fluid test. This test is obviously more invasive because it involves a lumbar puncture, and it is not currently covered by Medicare. So now that the SYN1 test is available, almost everyone is opting to have that one done. So how is DLB treated? So first, there's some pharmacologic interventions that may help, specifically with cognition, movement, and mitigating psychosis. The generic name of these medications is listed in the middle column, and the brand name is listed on the right-hand side. The first 3 medications listed under the brand names Aricept, Exelon, and Razidine are cholinesterase inhibitors, which are considered the first line of treatment to improve cognitive impairment. There are also quite a few medications that may cause harm in DLB patients and should be altogether avoided if possible. On the left-hand side of the slide, you will see a list of medication categories to be careful of, and then on the right-hand side is a more specific list of generic and brand names. I'd like to call your attention to a couple things in particular. The first is that antipsychotics should be approached with extreme caution in DLB patients. They can cause violent reactions such as worsening confusion, heavy sedation, and increased Parkinson's-like symptoms. One particular antipsychotic called haloperidol or Haldol should be altogether avoided. Haloperidol is frequently administered in emergency situations to help calm a person down. However, in DLB patients, haloperidol can cause severe reactions. So if your loved one is diagnosed with DLB or Parkinson's, list this medication as an allergy, even if they've never been administered it. Second, an over-the-counter ingredient that can potentially cause great harm to DLB patients is diphenhydramine. This is the main ingredient in Benadryl, as well as other over-the-counter medications used to treat cold, cough, and flu symptoms. So always check the ingredient list. Third, anticholinergics should be avoided as they have many side effects, particularly in older adults and those with DLB. Pharmaceuticals in general can do really strange and unexpected things in people with DLB. So it's really important for patients to check with their doctor before taking anything new or changing the dose of a medication they're already taking. And finally, anesthesia can cause complications. So if a surgery is ever needed, just be sure to talk to your doctor ahead of time. So there's some non-medication interventions that have been researched in recent years, including diet. Longitudinal tracking studies of cognition have found measurable evidence that the MIND diet enables cognitive resilience. Also, avoiding ultra-processed foods whenever you can is another way we can try to stay healthy and give ourselves the best option to fight off disease. So altering diet is not a guaranteed way of preventing DLB or any type of dementia, so much as a way of optimizing cognition. My mom, for example, followed the MIND diet unintentionally her whole life. She just preferred that type of food, and she still died of DLB. But maybe her cognitive symptoms would have been way worse if she hadn't taken such good care of herself. There's no way to know for sure. So I don't want to build false hope, but I think it's worth trying the things that we have control over, and diet is definitely something we can control. There are also some social interventions that may be therapeutic, and a few are listed on this slide. Basically, doing what brings you joy is so important for mental well-being, but particularly if you have dementia. The little things really can mean everything. So next, I'm going to go over some resources for patients and caregivers. Support groups and educational opportunities are an excellent way for patients and caregivers to connect with each other and talk to people experiencing similar challenges. One support group that I highly recommend is run by Pat Snyder. She lost her husband to DLB and has devoted the years following his death to helping others get through this difficult journey, and in particular, caregivers. She runs a Wake Forest dementia caregiver class, which is offered in person and via Zoom. So if you would like to be a part of the group, you can just email her at this email address, and she will add you to the group mailing list. And I'm happy to circulate these slides afterwards, so you don't have to worry about writing everything down. It's a lot of contact information. So the Duke Dementia Family Support Program is another fantastic resource, and it does not require any affiliation with Duke. They have numerous services that are education, support, and caregiving related. They also have a list of local support groups that are based on caregiver needs and location. There are numerous dementia organizations that have tremendous resources. I would like to particularly highlight the Lewy Body Dementia Association, or the LBDA, and I think the logo is not showing up that well, but you'll see it when I circulate the slides. Their website has a large assortment of articles, care summaries for patients, caregivers, health professionals, and donors. They also have a 24-hour caregiver link, or Lewy helpline, which I personally used on more than one occasion when I was caring for my mom. Every time I called, I was connected to a social worker or a healthcare professional, and they helped talk me through whatever my concerns were. They also have downloadable resources, such as this medical alert card, which is something of potentially great value, particularly if your loved one with DLB is ever in a situation where you can't be with them. This medical alert card lists emergency contacts, but more importantly, provides warning for healthcare professionals who may not be as familiar with the dangers of antipsychotic medications. So the LBDA has several research centers of excellence around the country, and one of them is here locally at UNC. Dr. Andrea Bizzocchi, who I contract with on local educational initiatives, is the principal investigator for UNC's LBDA Research Center of Excellence. Dr. Bizzocchi is a neurologist, and she's a tremendous advocate for people with DLB as well as other dementias. So in addition to the LBDA, there are numerous other organizations with tremendously helpful resources. In no particular order, the North Carolina Registry for Brain Health, Dementia Alliance, the Duke UNC Alzheimer's Disease Research Center, the Alzheimer's Association, and the Brain Support Network. And this list is not all inclusive. They all provide excellent caregiver and patient support information, as well as links to recent research and local events. So next, I'm going to talk briefly about the everyday challenges associated with DLB. This is primarily directed towards caregivers, but patients may find some benefit as well. So due to hallucinations, delusions, and cognitive changes, DLB can cause fluctuating levels of alertness, attention, and mood. The key word here is fluctuating. Physical and mental changes can be sudden. They can last minutes or hours or days. One of the most challenging things for me was not knowing what to expect on a minute-to-minute basis when I was caring for mom. So the suggestions on this slide definitely fall into the category of easier said than done, but they are things to keep in the back of your mind and try whenever possible if you're a caregiver. The first suggestion is to try to remain calm. If you can stay calm, then there's a chance the patient will not be as agitated as they would be otherwise. Alongside this, talk slowly and reassuringly. Try to not take things personally. Recognize that when hurtful things are said or violent behavior is exhibited, it's the dementia at play and it's not the person you're taking care of. Next, always reassure the patient of their safety. Some patients cannot express their fears due to loss of language or confusion, and they're scared. So anytime a patient can be reassured that they're physically safe, you are safe, and you love them, sometimes that's all they need to feel some peace. Distractions can sometimes help, and sometimes they don't. There were times when distractions got me through the day with mom, and other times they did nothing to ease her mind. But you have to keep trying. You never know what strategy will work one day and not the next, or vice versa. Finally, Dr. Coffer was a wonderful neurologist who specialized in taking care of patients with DLB as well as frontotemporal dementia. Sadly, he passed away from cancer very suddenly several years ago. Someone once asked his advice on how to interact with a dementia patient, and he said, you should honor who they are. And I think what he was encouraging was that no matter how far advanced a person's dementia may be, the person that existed is still there. They're still inside, and they don't want this diagnosis to define them. So if you can find ways to reach that person, respect that person, and more importantly, make them feel valued, then you're honoring them, which is a really beautiful gift. So this slide is a simple reminder that the little things are big things and they can help you get through the day. The big message from this slide is if you're a caregiver, please be kind to yourself, accept that you'll make mistakes, remain cognizant that everyone is functioning under extremely difficult circumstances. So there's a level of empathy that needs to be brought to the room, and everyone in the room needs to receive that empathy, including the caregiver. Recognize that what you're doing is incredibly hard, and you can do an even better job if you don't try to do it all yourself. There's some books that are extremely helpful. I just listed them here on this slide. If you're interested or you know someone who's interested in participating in a DLB trial, either as a patient or as a caregiver, the best way to research the active trials is to go to either of these links. They're updated very regularly. And Dr. Bazzoki asked me to add this slide. Get your shingles vaccine. There's ample proof by this recent study published in Nature that getting the shingles vaccine delays or reduces the probability of a new dementia diagnosis by a significant amount. These are my references. And this is a small collage of my beautiful mom. Everything I do now is for her, so it feels appropriate to share her beautiful smile with y'all. And we've reached the end, so I know this was, thank you. It's a lot of information. I hope the resounding message was one of hope. There's so many things happening in the Lewy body community just in the past few years that were basically non-existent even 5 years ago. Now there's trials and a true research interest, and most importantly, a discussion taking place. So thank you for being here, and please, honest feedback. Let me know what I can do to make this presentation better. You know, are there questions you have that this didn't answer that I could add in that would be more helpful? And if you know of any groups or organizations that may benefit, just please let me know. I'm happy to do this presentation or something similar anywhere. So thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah. Thank you. So far, we have been unable to find any consistent patterns with genetics. That doesn't mean that there aren't some, and we just don't know what they are. But families have been tracked extensively, and to date, there's no patterns that can be found. So that's part of what makes this so challenging. So good news and bad news then, I guess, to answer your question. Yeah, but because her mother had it, it's not like with Alzheimer's where you can check for a certain gene and say, oh, if you have this gene, then your chances are increased. Even that isn't a surefire, you're getting it. But we don't have any of those measurements right now. Lewy body research is really far behind Alzheimer's. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, so tying Parkinson's and Lewy body. So Parkinson's and Lewy body are like, they're caused by the same thing. And they call it the 1-year rule of diagnosis. So if people develop physical symptoms 1 year or more before they develop mental symptoms, they're diagnosed with Parkinson's. If they develop mental symptoms, and by mental I mean executive functioning challenges, hallucinations, delusions, if that comes 1 year or more before physical symptoms, they're diagnosed with dementia with Lewy bodies. Both conditions are progressive, so eventually if someone lives long enough, the symptoms can overlap. What we don't understand is that Parkinson's seems to progress, like the mental symptoms seem to progress way slower. I know 3 people that have had Parkinson's for more than 20 years, sharp as a tack. They've got nothing going on in their mind. They're perfectly fine. Dementia with Lewy bodies is aggressively fast. My mom had every single symptom. I mean, you look at a list of 40, she had every single symptom within, 2 years. She was actually misdiagnosed with Parkinson's. And to answer your question, carbidopa-levodopa is probably the medication your friend's on that can help with the physical symptoms. My mom was put on carbidopa-levodopa, and I now know that because she had Lewy body as her primary and she was just misdiagnosed, it could have made her cognition worse. So there's some, or if you have Parkinson's proper, it may not do that. So even though they're like the same origin and some people say they're the same disease, there's some really distinct differences. I hope that answers what you're saying. Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is that Alzheimer's is more well known, it's more common, but also because I feel like it's only recently that we've started to recognize that not all dementia is Alzheimer's. Not like it's important to distinguish what someone has, if possible, which is not always possible. And I think now that we're recognizing that, especially with like the medications I was talking about, you could give someone with Alzheimer's haloperidol, for example, and they'd probably be fine. But if you give it to someone that has dementia with Lewy bodies, it can be dramatically awful and irreversible. Not always, but it can be. So just things like that are being recognized more and more. And healthcare professionals are, up until recently, were not trained extensively on the different types of dementia. So part of what Dr. Bazzoki is trying to do is focus on training healthcare professionals, and I'm trying to focus on just talking to the general public and understanding what people's questions are and trying to help. So part of it is just the prevalence issue, but a lot of it is just finally that recognition that it is important to know what type of dementia you have. And not all dementia means forgetting. My mom never forgot anything. I mean, she remembered every single thing, but everything was a confused timeline. People were inserted in the wrong places, events were inserted in the wrong chronological place. She never forgot anything, which in some ways made it harder. That answer your question? Okay, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Happy to hand that back over.
Yes, thank you for the presentation on such a complex topic, but also dealing with the microphones. I appreciate it, your patience with that. Rotarians, if you will go ahead for time's sake, please stand. We will be dismissed with the 4-way test. Of the things we think, say, and do, first, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? We are dismissed. I did not have the mug. I'm going to go get the mug.